Hi all, this is Skate, and this is a video which is long overdue on this channel. It's the IS7. It's a legend. It's an icon. It's everywhere at tier 10. Because it's such a popular tank. Yet, I don't play it as much as I play the other heavies. It's a fantastic tank. It really is. It's my first tier 10 heavy tank, and it's ridiculously popular in clan wars because it's just such a good tank. Yeah, as I said, I don't play it as much as my other tier 10 heavies. And truth be told, the only reason for that is I find the gameplay on some of the other tier 10 heavies a bit more exciting, a little bit more challenging potentially, less forgiving. E100. He needs purely and solely to rely on being able to angle up that tank. You need skill for this, I'm not saying that. But I just find other tier 10 heavies a bit more of a challenge sometimes, which as a result they're more exciting to play. This thing, you do need skill and tactics, but it's ridiculously forgiving and it's ridiculously troll, as we all know. It's damn annoying sometimes too. But all that being said, when I took this thing out to get some recorded footage for it, I really enjoyed playing it again. Because of how damn troll it is. But like I said, I would rather drive, as a personal preference, an FV215B heavy. Or an E100 even. Just personal preference here. That's all it comes down to. This was my first tier 10 heavy though, and it is a damn good heavy. It is solid. So what I'm going to do today is talk about the pros and cons of the IS7, talk about how I like to play it, because although it's one of my least played heavies, as over the recent few months or even year, I still have like over 500 battles in this thing. In fact, I think it's over 600 now. Nonetheless though, IS7. If you don't have one, get one. If you don't have any tier 10 tanks, this, in my opinion, is the best first tier 10 tank. It's very forgiving. I'm pretty sure I've said that so many times in the first 2 minutes already, because it is. It's troll as hell. And I think for that reason, and for the fact that the armor is easy to manipulate in terms of using it, it's the best first tier 10. I mean, if you look at an E100, it's got flat sides, it's got flat back, it's got flat everything. If you can't angle correctly, or you haven't learned to angle correctly, or you're a very early on into the game player, something like that is easy to obliterate. Something like this is not. So a lot of tanks rely purely on being pushed at angles and manipulating the armor in certain ways. The IS7 has one hell of an aggressive pike, and it's a very well armored pike, which means it's very, very good directly straight on. If you try and angle the tank left, you're weakening the front right plate. If you angle right, you're weakening the front left upper plate. So for a lot of tanks you come up against, it's just a case of being directly straight on. Yeah, give it a little bit of a wiggle because it encourages people to try and shoot at a plate, and while you're wiggling there's a high likelihood they're going to bounce. But the golden rule quite simply is hide the lower plate, and everything else is of less concern frontally. If you're looking to take this tank out from the front, however, and you can't get clear shots on the lower plate, you need to relocate and go for the track wheel. Even if you can get it at some form of slight angle, you'd be surprised how much you can penetrate one of these tanks through the track wheel. It's one hell of a weak spot on it. So with that in mind, if you're driving one of these things, try not to give them your track wheel at an angle. Try and be as direct on as possible while hiding the lower plate. If you come up against one of these things and you're shooting the upper plate when you've got a visible shot at the track wheel, go for that front track wheel. It will make a mess of this tank. That being said, the frontal armor on this thing is fantastic, and the biggest concern, quite simply, is the lower plate. But as we all know, even the size of this thing is damn good. It's got spaced armor all the way down the side, and you get a tremendous amount of bounces off the side of this tank, even at a slight angle. That's because those flat bits on the side of the IS7 is actually the spaced armor, and it is heavily angled underneath. Simple solution: if you're shooting an IS7 and you're shooting the side of it, don't shoot the spaced armor bit. Shoot just below it, if you can just above the track, or if not, shoot into the top area of the track and you're more likely to penetrate it. Also something to consider when you're driving it is try not to give someone too much of the side. You can angle up the side and they may go for the front plate instead, so you need to be careful in that regard. And then the same again if we're talking about the rear of the tank. The rear of the turret is quite weak actually, and the rear flat back of the tank is quite weak. But those angled corners, you will get a ridiculous amount of bounces off them as well. Simply put, if you're aiming at the back of this thing, go for as central as you possibly can. You'll see a couple of examples in these videos, because I do bounce off those corners on someone. Other things to consider: mobility. For a heavy tank, which a tank, it's a very heavy tank, it's got a fantastic top speed, and its acceleration isn't half bad. Its traverse, it's okay. It got nerfed a while back, so you can get circled in this thing, but mobility-wise, it's very, very respectable. And then there are some drawbacks. We'll talk about the gun in a minute. But there are some drawbacks, and one of the major drawbacks is module damage on this thing. It's a really easy tank to set on fire, and it's also a surprisingly easy tank to ammo rack. If you're aiming for ammo racks on IS7s, the best place to try and get them is behind the front two track wheels, or just above the lights on the front upper plates if the tank is not angled correctly. Bearing in mind it's pretty hard to penetrate those areas. And I've saved the gun for last because, well, it's a good gun in terms of its alpha. It produces 460 alpha per shot. On top of that, you have 2,583 damage with a rammer. Very respectable 260mm of penetration for a heavy tank. In other words, the gun's fine in terms of that. It hasn't got the highest DPM, but it's never been an issue for this tank. 0.362 gun dispersion and a 2.63 second aim time. Again, not bad figures. And this is why people say the IS7 is overpowered, because A, Russian bias, and B, it's ridiculously good. And it doesn't really suck too much in many aspects. I mean, yeah, the accuracy, you could ask for better accuracy, but then again, should you be playing this from next to your tank destroyers at very, very, very long range? Not really. Can you use it at this sort of range to pull shots? Absolutely no problem at all. Nearly every single time that would hit. It is just a good all-round, well-rounded tank, like pretty much the entire IS series. It's the reason people spam ISs at tier 8, spam IS3s, IS6s, IS7s are the same, because they're solid, reliable tanks. They're also very troll. But I find the gameplay on something like, say, a 50B, a 57, T57, E100, the FE215B, I just find the gameplay on them more exciting. Quirky is probably the better word, because all the tanks have some quirky thing to them. The FE has a beautiful gun, and that's the best word for it. It's just mwah. You've got things like the 50B. It's got good gun depression with a tasty autoloader. So they've all got this little special thing about them. Whether it be the gun or be the armor isn't as just flat out effective, so you need to pay more attention, which means you're more enthralled in the gameplay. With one of these, there is so much room for mistake. And I'm not saying buy one of these if you don't already and you're just going to have amazing stats. It doesn't work like that. But getting one of these things, everyone should have one in my book. Can't believe that didn't kill him, by the way. But yeah, it's just a solid, all-round tank. And it doesn't have any quirks to it, I don't think. Not that I instantly come to my head, anyway. It's just, yeah, if someone said IS7, I'd be like, well, it looks fantastic. And the gun is good. The armor is good. Mobility is good. There's nothing that makes you go, ooh, IS7. Oh, that gun is just wow. Because no one does that. They just go, IS7. Yeah, it's just OP. And that's why so many people say the tank is OP, because it's got so many features which are just very, very strong. Doesn't have the greatest gun depression. It's got 6 degrees. For a tank which has all those other good qualities, it's good. You can see where I'm going with this. But yet, regardless of that, I still think for those reasons mentioned, it is by far the best first tier 10 heavy. Because it can do all those things. Because it's solid. I mean, I'm going to try and side scrape a little bit. Over side scrape, and you overexpose your front plate at an angle, which means it's weak. But you can side scrape in the thing. I'm trying to bait a shot, and then I give up and just think screw it and shoot it. Now, there's only 2 left. There's 4 of us left on our team. But sadly, my team are very, very low hit points. The other 2 are playing exceptionally well. So the tables are going to turn. Credit to the enemy IS7 and to the enemy Object 140. This is probably my favourite point of the game, actually. It gets interesting. I mean, I just bounced a shot on the back of that IS7. Poorly aimed shot, granted. Then that one went in. Now we're in a 2-on-2. I'm going to try and go in and be the centre of attention, but the 140 is going to take out my team buddy, and watch this. That corner on the IS7, doink. Oh, that's so frustrating. And now the 140's come to deal with me. And I'm trying to get in close, quite simply to hide the lower plate from the enemy IS7. Because when you hide the lower plate, it's ridiculously hard to penetrate this thing frontally. Key thing, very important here. I got stuck by there for a second. Pay attention to that, because this is important. I'm happy with this little trick. It was one of those moments where you kind of want to give yourself a tap on the head and go, yay, well done. Because watch, we're going to play round and round the garden. Or are we? So, if I go left, he's just going to go right. He's got the better mobility. Instead, I'm going to reverse. And I'm going to use the momentum of my tank to push that dead tank. You can see what I've done. I was pleased with myself for thinking of that. It's given me that extra little bit of time to get left and get one more shot into him. It didn't completely jam him in, that would have been fantastic. But it gave enough of a squish that it gave me that extra little advantage. Such a simple thing, but I was genuinely pleased with myself because I went, ooh, I got an idea. But that was a mastery game with only 3,960 damage. But we do have a steel wall in there, and we had 5 kills, which do obviously contribute to the base XP, which helps towards the mastery. On top of that, we have assistance damage from track shots. I don't think we had much in terms of spotting assistance, but track shots were definitely in there. So there's 1,000 assistance damage on this as well, which is what bumps up the base XP. It helps and it goes a long way. And we bounced a fair amount of shots, which in a lot of other tanks I think we would have been wiped out with. So I think we've covered everything in terms of its armor, in terms of mobility. Mobility, like I said, is very fast in a straight line for a tank which weighs this much. It's not got medium tank mobility in terms of acceleration though. It's just stereotypical heavy tank acceleration. And the traverse, it lacks a little, not excessively realistically. Playstyle. Now I've mentioned hiding the lower plate is the one and only priority basically when you're facing something frontally. If you over angle, they're just going to go for track shots. You shouldn't really over angle or over angle at all in any shape or form. What you should be going for is a direct head-on approach. And if you're out in the open exposed, use that weight and that top speed to ram something, take the tracks off, and your lower plate at that point is hidden. If you're against something like an E100 which can shoot down on you, don't face hug it. Try and keep a couple of meters away from it, because a couple of meters away it can't shoot your lower plate, and then it can't shoot the hatches on top either. Now those hatches are sunken down into the turret. However, if the E100 is face-hugging you, it can shoot into them. When you're a couple of meters away, can't shoot the lower plate, it will struggle against the pikes due to the lack of gun depression on it, and it has the front of your turret to contend with. You'll probably find at that point they'll start splashing HE at you, or load the heat and try and get in close, or reverse enough so they can get at that front pike. Also, deciding when to make a push is very, very important. The Death Star has decided to make a push, which is why I've gone, do you know what, there's no way I'm letting a Death Star... Wow, look at that accuracy. It was a bit troll, wasn't it? Yeah. I couldn't leave a Death Star push by itself, which is why I said, right, I'm going to go and take the shots for that Death Star. Because the reality is, when people see a Death Star, they're going to make a push on it. If I come and take the shots for the guy, I'm doing my job. And my job is IS7, absorb a shed ton of stuff. Actually, traverse speed, turret traverse is something I haven't mentioned. Turret traverse isn't that good at all. Then again, everything else is pretty good on it. Can't really complain about a slow rotating turret, can we? But that's what fast mediums will try and manipulate by circling you, is your slow traverse, or sorry, your slow turret speed. As a personal preference, I would try and ram them, because by ramming you take the tracks off, you also do a surprising amount of damage, like I said, because of the top speed and because of the weight on this thing. If they manage to get around you, try and stay in close to the medium tank. As long as you stay in close, they are seriously going to struggle. Because all things considered, this is quite a low down tank. It's got a low hull, it's got a low turret, which make it in itself very formidable. I mean, even this sort of ridge I'm using in front of me makes it a very hard target, especially to tanks that lack gun depression. Then combine that with the fact that every map is full of this sort of little dunes, little cover. You can use that all to your advantage when you're in an IS7. And that's what you need to be doing. Don't go rushing in headfirst because you're an IS7 and think, yeah, I'm going to absorb everything, and then have shots from every single angle. You can't absorb shots from every single angle. But then from the same perspective, well, there's two angles. But then from the same perspective, don't go sitting at the back, because you don't have a gun built for it, you don't have a tank built for it. Your tank's job is to be up front, or at least to be very close to the front line, absorbing and trying to do as much damage as you can. Which does rely on team play to a degree. Kinda. If you can see your tank destroyers rushing in because they've seen an opportunity you haven't seen yet, get up there and try and absorb the shots for them. It'll help tremendous amounts. That for me pretty much sums up the IS7. It's a good tank. It's a very, very good tank. It's a very good looking tank at the same time. The gun I mentioned earlier has good accuracy for a heavy tank. What I mean by that, just to expand on it, more than anything, is the accuracy isn't massively good, but considering how this tank has so many other good features, it's not that bad. You'll get trolled by the accuracy sometimes, but the majority of times you'll hit where you want. But it's a Russian gun, so it will troll you sometimes. And on top of that, that's probably what I like least about the tank. And that's probably what pushes me to other tanks, is better accuracy or quicker firing guns. I just think the gameplay after a while, could be because I played a lot of battles in it, but I just think the gameplay after a while becomes a bit less exciting and a bit less enthralling than other heavy tank gameplay. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye bye.